he has been doing something that few people dare to do. He has not gone to the Wild West as in the old days. This man, he has been going to the Wild East, where he has started a very successful online company in Russia. Filip, please join us on stage. Filip Engelbert, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, Filip, we are looking forward to hearing your story about what it is to go to this wild country and get things going.
I will tell you all about it.
Yes. Let me get your presentation
So
up.
while you do that, my name is Filip Engelbert. I am not a geek by any of the definitions, but I'm extremely passionate about what I'm doing. I think that's where Alexander and I are very like. So I moved to Russia in 2007 with my three children and my lovely wife. And I will speak to you today about doing business in Russia, and I called it 7 lessons from doing unsuccessful and successful business in Russia. So before I say anything about what I've done, I just want to make it very, very clear that we have had our absolute best years in Moscow. Unfortunately, my family moved back just a few months ago. They got tired of sitting three hours per day in traffic to go to school. We love Russia, we love Russians, and everything I say here should be viewed in light of that, because Russia can be a pretty shitty place to be in. So, how many of you have been in Russia? Quite a few, actually. But it's only a 2-hour flight there, and it's from an online perspective. It's Europe's second largest online community, but still it has one of the lowest internet penetrations. There's 140 million people living in a country with 11 time zones. And I flew from Moscow to Kamchatka, which is 11 time zones away. So I experienced what a long domestic flight is. And it's a very, very concentrated, the population is very concentrated to large cities. It's Moscow and St. Petersburg. And I would say in Moscow, nobody knows how many people that lives there. I think we have 30 people in our office. Nobody is even registered in Moscow. It's a very, very big country. And before 1992, business as we know it, you make money, you invest, and you expect long-term returns, did not exist. This was a communist country. And it's an extremely rich country. And finally, the Russian employee has a very the list of priorities that's very simple. It's me, myself, and I. Then it's the family. Then it's the colleague. And then maybe it's about the people you're working for. Create some headache, I promise you. So some short intro of what I've been doing. In 2005, I started a company called Contact East, and that was actually an acquisition of Eniro, which is the Yellow Pages business of Sweden. We acquired their Russian business. Then in 2006, we went public on the Stockholm Stock Exchange, and we want to create an online investment company, and the catchy investment slogan was, "What works in the West will work in the East." Love that. And then in 2007, we started our second business. It was a group that started Tradera here in Sweden, and the aim was to start a similar service in Russia. And then in 2008, we went private again, and during these first few years, we grew the Yellow Pages business from being 300 people to 1,000 people. We were a pretty big site, and then the shit hit the fan. So what happens in these countries when the crisis comes, it's like it's been booming, 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 and then, bam, everything stops. And so in 2009, we downscaled the Yellow Pages business quite significantly. We changed the concept of Avito. I will talk a little bit later about that. So to summarize, I think I've been through everything that you can do in Russia. I started, I acquired, I fired, I went bankrupt, pretty much everything. So, first lesson, always do the right thing, but do not forget to do it in the right way. I think we Swedish people, and I think me in particular, are not obsessed, but we want to do the right thing. We're very honest people, and that's something that's very great. But you have to do it in the right way. And my first oh shit experience was my first week when I got to Russia, and my first task was to fire the guy who was the generalny director of the Yellow Pages business. And I got some advices, and the Western people, so you meet him, you try to agree with the severance package, and then you go home, and then you meet day after, and you try to get everything in writing. Whereas the people that have been in Moscow or in Russia for a long time, they told me, so you go in there, you negotiate, and you get a signing, and you get the stamp, and then you leave. So being Swedish, I said, okay, let's treat him as a human. So we had a discussion, and I went home, and I thought he went home to think. And the next day, he had stolen all our brand names, all our URLs, even the company car. So, and not because he was, this is just the way it could be done. And I think it took 2.5 years to clean out that mess. So I'll do it differently now. So don't forget, do it the right way. The problem of the company increases exponentially with the amount of employees. As I said initially, Russians are extremely unmotivated. And where we see proactiveness, it does not exist here and there. And I can tell from my own experience, having 1,000 employees in 11 cities, it's really a headache. And the title manager, or manager, as you say in Russia, is more a title of or a state where you don't have to perform anything. So it's very, very difficult. And use the famous phrase, this will not work, this is Russia, as a reverse indicator. Almost at a daily basis, I hear this. So you have a discussion with one of your employees, and then finally, when they cannot sort of persuade you, they go, but Filip, this is Russia. And I promise you, it's all about, going to back to what Alexander said, it's about passion. You can always do what you want. So whenever this comes up, use it as a reverse indicator. I don't know how many people that told us that Avito, which is sort of a Russian Craigslist or Blocket, wouldn't work. It does. Lesson number 4. If it doesn't work in the West, it will not work in the East. It's pretty obvious. When we started out as a Yellow Pages company, and I don't think so many of you have telephone books at home. So if you want to do this, make sure it works at home before you go to Russia, okay? Lesson number 5. Be inspired by great ideas is good. Copying them with perfection is better. So, and I have really first-hand experience with this too. When we started Avito, it was a combination of online classifieds and online auctions. And I think we sort of cherry-picked from a lot of good sites. And then when the crisis came, we just got our act together, I think. And we pretty much copied one of the world's best companies, which is Blocket. It makes just life so much easier. And there are so many other companies in Russia that have started being pure copies of other successful companies. One is Vkontakte, which is a copy of Facebook. So once you get it to work, fly under the radar. When we started Avito in 2009, we were just preparing ourselves for launch to make it a big company. We did not approach any media. We just kept very much on the radar. Then we did a big TV push in early 2010, and we became big. And then since then we have become much bigger. But we never made a story about it. And now I think we're big enough to not attract any competition. But just 6 months ago, we tried to do exactly the same thing in Ukraine. And by all means, we got very big, very fast, but it only took 1 week. And this, as you see here on the picture, is Torg, which we started. It took 1 week before one of our competitors did an exact copy of our site. They did an exact copy of all the TV commercials. And to add to all of this confusion, Schibsted, which owns Blockers, also started a site in Ukraine, looking exact. I mean, that's the original, the mothership. So we have 3 sites in Ukraine, looking exactly the same, promising pretty much the same, and marketing themselves. So it's a little bit confusing situation there. And if I come back next year, I hopefully have something to tell you about how we solve that situation, because now it's not really clear. And the final lesson is that all online projects require capital. In Russia, you need capital with staying power and experience. You can imagine what investors said when a general director stole all our assets. You need to be experienced. You need to understand that shit happens, and then you move on. And there are not so many investors around the world that has that experience in Russia. And we worked with Vostok Nafta, which is and Kinnevik, and they have been very, very supportive. I can give them all good recommendations. So where are we today? So this Contact East has become 2 companies. One is called Yell. I'm not involved there anymore, but I'm of course very well aware of what's happening. It's the first Russian review site. It's on the way of being a copy of Yelp. What I do 24/7 is I work with Avito with a partner of mine called Jonas Norlander. We have divided our work very easily. He spends the money, I'm trying to make the money. It's very simple. He's the general director, I'm an executive board director. I think we're one of Europe's largest sites now. We have over 1 million people at any given day. We get 100,000 new listings every day. We are 30 people in Moscow. We started a business in Torg, which I showed in Ukraine. We will also have a sweatshop. We moderate all the listings that come in, so we take away all the guns, all the prostitutes that always find liquid marketplaces. And I think we will continue to grow for many years going forward. I think we're number 6th or 7th in terms of Russian internet sites. So in summary, Russia will be one of the most interesting online markets for a long time going forward. And if you want to try, and I really encourage people to do that. It's a fantastic place. So these are the 5, to-dos. Make sure you know exactly what you want to do and not what to do. I mean, it's a country with a lot of opportunities, and you have a lot of creative employees, but be very, very precise in what you want to do. Staff it with a few good talents, management by Skype, management by remote, management by calling does not work. You have to be there. Make sure you have access to capital. Execute with precision and extreme endurance, and operate under the notion of nothing is easy and nobody can be trusted. Just makes life easier. And I mean, just to expand on that, and it's what Alexander said, this is about passion. This is about winning. I think I got so many gray hairs since I moved to Moscow. It's fantastic, it's very rewarding, but you really have to endure. And finally, fly under the radar. There's no plus points in having your picture in D.se or in one of the glossy magazines. Stay under the radar, because once you get it to work, people will copy you relentlessly and trying to steal your business. That's it.
Okay.
Спасибо.
Пожалуйста. we have any questions from the audience?
Hi, I have two questions. The first is, how do you motivate people who don't want to work?
The first question, the really true answer is that you try not to employ so many people. So that's the first. And then you have them, and I think once you find people that are passionate about it, they will work. So you have to churn a lot of people before you assemble your core group. And now I think the core group, although I say we're 30, I think the core group is about 15 people, and I think we maybe recruited 45 to get those 15 people.
The second question is, you hear a lot about crime in Russia and extortion and so on. So have you had any bad experience with that, apart from the general manager stealing everything, but with organized crime?
Apart from exactly what you said, the manager stealing everything, no, never got in touch with it. And my wife usually tells me that she feels more safe walking in Moscow than in central Stockholm, and it's no problem whatsoever. And I think Russians in general, if it's on paper and it's signed, they will always deliver on it. But it's very important to get the signature and the stamp on it. Any more questions?
The question is, how do you handle corruption?
Oh, you bribe. No. Never actually came across it. And I think we're not in a sexy business. I mean, we sell garbage. People's at home. But corruption, no, I've never been involved. I've never been approached. But a box of chocolate would really get you far. In the tax office, in all of these offices you have to pass. You come with a box of chocolate and you sort of get on top of line. But nothing more than that.
The question is, how do you avoid your business being copied? Is there any laws you can follow?
No, not really. But let's face it, in Sweden is such a protected market, and I mean, for big companies, it's a marginal market. So one of my friends, he started a coffee chain. He said, it's fantastic in Sweden. You know, once you figure something out, and somebody has the same idea, they will look at you and they say, oh, he already did that, then I need to do something else. Whereas I think big markets like the US or Russia or China for that matter, is like when you figure something out, people will copy you. And the only way to keep the people that copies you away is just to execute better, be better, work harder, pure sort of fundamentals of doing business. But legally there's nothing. I mean, we have no patents, we have nothing. We have a brand name.
Yeah. Pretty good one, it sounds to me.
Yeah.
Right. We are very happy. We have to conclude here because we have a schedule to keep. And fantastic thank you to Filip for coming to Stockholm. And
thank you.
We hope to see you here again.